Nigun is called Lincoln's Nigun, a melody by Joey Weisenberg, who I had the pleasure of virtually meeting over the past 2 years as part of a different learning session that we had with the Koleno, Boston's Jewish Community Choir. And why it's called Lincoln's Nigun? Well, we'll address that a little bit later in the service.
We have the pleasure tonight of having bookends at the beginning and at the end of our service of two wonderful couples who've just recently been married within these last 6 months. So our first end of the bookend, we would like to invite up Becca and Josh Cohen to come and light the candles for Shabbat. Is that right? I don't know if you were done. Are you done? Yeah. Do we need to put this back on or not?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you, Josh and Becca. Now I'd like to invite Rabbi Schaefer to come up and say a few opening words. Thank you.
I have to adjust that mic.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good to see everybody here in person and who is joining us on Zoom. If you're joining us on Zoom, it's not an April Fool's joke. The rabbis have not magically transformed. Rabbi Berkman and I are here tonight, but we're very grateful to the Brotherhood to be leading tonight's service, to give us a night off. This service, which we haven't been able to have the last couple of years, I think is a wonderful example of the collective way that we lead here at TOS. And the participation of everybody here tonight is a wonderful example for everybody in our community, whether you're a member of the Brotherhood or not, of what makes a successful synagogue. And it is an auspicious time for us to be having this service. Today is Rosh Chodesh, and Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It is the first of the month of Nisan, which begins spring. It's the month that Passover is in. And it is a time of hope and renewal. And we recently have returned to being together in this chapel and gathering together in prayer. And that has been a sign of hope and renewal. And tonight we're going to have a chance to eat together, because how could we have a brotherhood service without some food? And that is an even more powerful example of us coming back together. And so I want to just give a special thank you to Alan and to Spence for putting together tonight's service, and to all the members of the Brotherhood who are going to help lead us tonight. We're so grateful for the ways you show up for our community, not only tonight, but throughout the year. And without further ado, I'll turn it back to our service leaders this evening.
Page 24.
This is a melody by Noah Aronson. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashoret, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Malchei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem Malachei HaShoret Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malchei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachem L'Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem Malachei HaShoret Malachei Elyon. Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem Malachei HaShoret Malachei Elyon. Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni L'Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem. 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 Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That melody, as I mentioned, is a melody by Noah Aronson, one of the new local composers of Jewish music, and that's based on some Cuban melodies. Mr. Aronson's mom was Cuban, and he just started playing around with that, and I kind of like that. I introduced it to David and to Josh, and maybe we've got something going here. We're going to next turn to page 14, and we invite Ed Kahn to come up and read.
Hello, everyone. Can you please turn to page 14? And I will read. Sing to Adonai a new song. Sing to Adonai all the earth. Sing to Adonai, bless God's name. Proclaim God's victory day after day. Tell of God's glory among the nations, God's wondrous deeds among all peoples. For Adonai is great and much acclaimed. God is held in awe by all divine beings. All the gods of the peoples are mere idols, but Adonai made the heavens. Glory and majesty are before God. Strength and splendor are in God's temple. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth exult. Let the sea and all within it thunder. The fields and everything in them exult. Then shall all the trees and of the forest shout for joy at the presence of Adonai, for God is coming. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and its peoples in faithfulness.
Thank you, Ed. On page 18.
Ascribe to Adonai, O divine beings. Ascribe to Adonai glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name. Bow down to Adonai, majestic in holiness. The voice of Adonai is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. Adonai over the mighty waters. The voice of Adonai is power. The voice of Adonai is majesty. The voice of Adonai breaks cedars. Adonai shatters the cedars of Lebanon. God, make Lebanon skip like a calf, Syrian like a young wild ox.
On page 20, we'll do L'cha Dodi. We're going to return to the opening Nigun, Lincoln's Nigun by Joey Weisenberg. When Mr. Weisenberg was writing this music, he originally wrote it as a Nigun. And I understand that he's a little bit of a history buff, and he was reading about Abraham Lincoln and how what Lincoln does is very related to the 9th verse of L'cha Dodi. And he writes in his notes, when Abraham Lincoln used to go out to inspect his troops, the men would stand in miles-long lines, opening to the right and to the left as he came through. In verse 8, the words of Yamin Usmol also express the anticipation and finally the reception of another enduring hero, that of the Shabbat Queen. We're going to sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 to the melody that we opened up with, again on page 20, L'cha Dodi. O L'cha Dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabela. O L'cha Dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dur echad hishmi'anu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'lit hila. O L'cha Dodi likrat P'nei Shabbat nikabela. O L'cha Dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha ki hi mikor habracha. Mirosh mikedem nisucha sof ma'aseh b'machaseh b'mav techila. O L'cha Dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabela. O L'cha Dodi likrat kala P'nei Tori, Kiva Orech, Kumi Uri, Uri, Shir Daberi, Kivod Adonai, Ahayich Nigla, Olecha Dodi Likrat Kalaha, Menei Shabbat Bekabela, Olecha Dodi Likrat Kalaha, Menei Shabbat Nekabela.
Verse 9.
Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha, u'tzohola, toch emunei, gam segula, boi chala, olecha dodi likrat kalaha, b'nei Rabban nekabela, olecha dodi likrat kalaha, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. On page 22. Mizmor shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat.
A psalm, a song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. With a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together, you have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai. How very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. The righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God. In old age, they still produce fruit. They are full of sap and freshness, attesting that Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no wrong.
Where are we?
We're now going to hear some words by Howard Core via Zoom.
True value of a person is not determined by their possession, supposed or real, of truth, but rather by their sincere exertion to get to the truth. It is not possession of truth by which she extends God's powers, and in which God's ever-growing perfectibility is to be found. If God were to hold all truth concealed in his right hand, and in his left only the steady and diligent drive for truth, I would with all humility take the left hand. Gotthard Lessing.
Thank you, Howard. The Hatzi Kaddish on page 26, which will separate the preliminary service from the main body of the service. Yisgadav Yisgadash Shemei Rabba, Bi'alma Divrach Yerusei, V'yamlich Machusei, B'chayechon of Mechon of Chaydachol Beis Roel, B'agalav is Makori V'imeru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabba Mevorach, Le'olam Alol Me'olmaya, Yitborach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitbar, V'yitramam, V'yitnasei, V'yitadar, V'yitela, V'yitalal, Shemedu Gudusha Barichu, Leila, Minka Berchasa Vishurasa, Tush Berchasa Venechamasa, Damiran Bialma, Ve'imaru, Amen. And on page 28, we'll all rise for the call to worship with the Baruch Hu. Turn around. Ben Spunt.
Bent? Ben, try this mic, it's taller.
On
Thank you.
page 30.
Shabbat Shalom. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the season, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzavot is your name, everlasting God, ever-living God. May you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
Umavir yomu umevi loila, umavdil ben yomu vein laila, Adonai tzavot shemo, el chayva kayam tamid yimloch, olenu lelalam, vo'ed, baruch ato Adonai, hama'ariv, aravim.
We invite Eric Hyatt for a reading on page 32.
Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
Baruch ato Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated. Havda es Adonai Elohecha. Please join us. Ulevavecha, uv'chol nafshecha, uv'chol meodecha. V'yu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi tzavcha, hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam. B'shivdecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha v'aderech, uv'shachpecha uv'kumecha, Ukshartam liot ayadecha, v'hoyu l'todafot beinenecha, uksavtom amzuzot beisecha, uvish orecha, leman tizkeru va'asisem skol mitzvotoi, v'yitem kedoshim leoheichem, ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher Otzeisi Eschem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Liot Lachem Le'Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Emes.
On page 40.
Who is like you, O God? Among the gods that are worshipped, who is like you? Majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders. Your children witnessed your sovereignty, the sea splitting before Moses and Miriam. This is our God, they cried. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from the hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel.
Thank you. Page 40, me.
Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha menor b'chodesh, norati lot o seifele, norati lot o seifele, alachu decha ra'u v'necha, lokei hayam lifnei Moshe Miriam, ze'eli ze'eli anu V'ne'emar ki for the nois Yaakov u'lo miad chazak mimenu Baruch ato Adonai go'al Yisroel.
On page 42.
Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim U'feros Aleinu Sukat Shelomecha V'tagnenu v'etzatova mirefanecha V'hoshienu leman shemecha V'hagen ba'adeinu V'haser me'aleinu Oyev dever V'cherev v'ra והסר שטן מלפנינו, והסר שטן מלפנינו ומאחרינו. ובצל כנפיך תסתירנו, כי שומרנו מצילנו אתה, כי אין מלך חנון ורחום ושמור את צאתנו לחיים ולשלום, ושמור את צאתנו לחיים ולשלום. מעתה ועד עולם.
That was the Hashkivenu by our former cantor, Robbie Salmon, from years ago. And this Hashkivenu is really one of my favorite prayers of the Shabbat evening. And it, whatever the tune, it puts me at such peace within. And I think that might be the most beautiful version that I've heard. And I also love this prayer because it's a very ancient Jewish prayer, and in those times, people didn't know what was going to happen when they went to bed. What happened to their soul? Did it leave them? Were they still alive? And would it return? So this was a prayer asking God to please protect them through the whole evening and shelter them with God's peace. So truly, it's one of my favorites. Anything else to add?
No.
Okay.
We're going to continue on page 46 for the tefillah. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Satai Tifta. Na 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 Ufiagi Tehiloteh. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Satai Tifta. Na 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 Ufiagi Tehiloteh. Yeah. On page 55, Mike Weintraub via Zoom would like to offer some words.
Shabbat Shalom. What does Shabbat mean to you? To me, Shabbat has always meant peace, tranquility, solace, rest, even love. Not only love of the Shabbat bride, but to my wife, with whom I shared my first date at a Shabbat service. As we finish the tefillah and start reading the silent prayers that follow, we pray for rest and renewal. We open our hearts to those who struggle, and we ask those who suffer and hurt to find solace and healing. So then, what do you think Shabbat meant to Mitchell Salem Fisher as we turn to his reading on page 55? Disturb us, Adonai, ruffle us from our complacency, make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai, deny to us the false Shabbat which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. What does Shabbat mean to you? Is it rest and renewal, or is it a call to action? Is it meant to bring you peace and solace, or is it meant to disturb, to shock, and to awaken you? Can these meanings coexist? What does Shabbat mean to you, my friends?
Thank you, Michael. We will all now take a few quiet moments for your own personal thoughts and prayers, meditations of your heart. On page 63. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisroel ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisroel. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisroel. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisroel. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisroel. And we'll turn now to page 253 for prayers for those who are ill in our community and need our best wishes and healthy thoughts. 253. Wait a minute, I'm not there yet. Wait a minute. Misheberach Avoseinu Ekor HaBracha Limotenu, the source of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. If you are here tonight wanting to make wishes for somebody who is ill, would you please either rise or raise your hand?
And if anybody is joining us at home via Zoom, please feel free to put those names into the chat. Anna McNaught, Lynn Brokel,
And also from our community, Stacy Kohler, Alice Newton, Mandy Cohen, Linda Hoffman, Linda Sanger, Harvey Solomon, Chaim Meshe, Dalia Bat Miriam, Asha Daniel Ben Leah, Dina Rachel Bat Aryeh and Galia, Dina Chaya Blima Bat Chaim Kriya Vasilia Ruchel, Cassandra Warshawski, Jeffrey Colt, Joseph Siegel, and Glenna Bubb. Of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We have the wonderful occasion tonight to welcome up one of our learned members, Larry Green, for our Devar. Thank you, Larry.
Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion, Parshat Tazria, may be the world's oldest and longest standing teaching on public health. The affliction of disease is of the disease of the skin, tsarat, which some biblical scholars have interpreted as leprosy and viewed by the Israelites as a sign of spiritual impurity. The verses of Parshat Tazria discuss at length what should be done to address this affliction. And what is very clear from this Torah portion is that the necessary response is both for the benefit of the individual and for the greater community. The Haftorah portion that accompanies this parsha from 2 Kings tells the story of how the prophet Elisha heals a foreigner afflicted with skin disease. And so begins a long line of Jewish teaching on dealing with disease and plague, from the Mishnah to Maimonides to more modern commentators. The common denominator in all of this is that disease is not to be ignored, but to be treated not only for the benefit of the individual, but for the greater community. And indeed, commentators such as Forno and Nahama Leibowitz have written of the importance of learning lessons from the experience of illness. So what lessons can we draw from all of this now that we are 2 years into a global pandemic that is still very much with us, although we are finally beginning to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel? Let me first address a basic question that I have heard from so many over the past 2 years. How could God permit the COVID pandemic to have happened? This is a very understandable question, as we all believe in a just God. I believe the answer is found as early as the first chapter of Genesis. After 6 days of creating heaven and earth, the seas and the land, the flora and the fauna, verse 31 of chapter 1 states, quote, God then surveyed all that God made, and look, it was very good, close quote. God did not create a perfect world, God created a very good world. A perfect world would be free of disease and natural disasters, but that is not the world that God created. Instead, it was God's plan for us to work as God's partners in trying to create a more perfect world and moving toward a more perfect world. Were God to have created a perfect world from the beginning, we would all lead enjoyable lives, but would we be living truly fulfilling and meaningful lives? Our lives have so much more fulfillment and meaning and ultimately more happiness when we overcome life's adversities and challenges, when we help improve the lives of others. Putting it differently, in a perfect world, we can be very happy sitting in our beach chairs, but the fulfillment, the meaning, and the ultimate happiness is so much greater when we climb a mountain or save a life. And that is the world we live in, a very good world that presents challenges but provides opportunities for true fulfillment and meaning. And Jewish tradition teaches that life is a journey. We don't begin at the destination. Life is a journey for each of us, and we are part of humankind's collective journey. As horrific and painful the COVID pandemic has been, the response of society will ultimately raise and improve humankind. We have seen the best of people, from the genius of our scientists to the dedications of our doctors and nurses, to the sacrifice of our teachers, to the caring of our parents. We have realized that we need to be more compassionate and less complacent. There have been a number of silver linings from COVID, ranging from a greater sense of balance between work and family life to the realization that we can collectively reduce our carbon footprint. And as horrific and painful the COVID pandemic has been, consider this. In the 14th century, the bubonic plague wiped out 30 to 60% of Europe's population. The so-called Spanish flu of a century ago resulted in the deaths of 2 to 3% of humankind. The COVID pandemic has resulted in the loss of 0.2% of the overall population. Over the centuries, humankind has made tremendous advances in medical treatments and public health. And as monumental as the losses have been in COVID, we are talking about 1/10 of what happened during the Spanish flu and 1/100th of what happened during the bubonic plague. And if another pandemic comes down the road, and it almost assuredly will, hopefully the losses at that point in time will be no more than 1/10 of what we are experiencing now, because of the advances that will have been made and the lessons that will have been learned. So where is God in all of this? I would submit that God plays a very important role in contributing to the partnership with humankind. God is our creator, and the gift of creation includes the natural resources of the earth and our minds and our bodies. Jewish tradition teaches that the world is recreated every day. Every sunrise represents a new day, a new opportunity to take advantage of God's gifts. and God is the source of good. The power of good is all around us. Every time we do something good, we are not only serving the immediate need, but we are setting the example for others around us with ripple effects beyond what we could ever know. And I would suggest that God is both omnipresent and omnipotent because the gift of creation and the force of good are all around us and so very powerful. But the omnipresence and omnipotence of God needs to be in partnership with humankind. We need God's creation, and we need God's good, and God needs us as God's partner to take full advantage of God's gifts. And that is where another endowment from God comes in, and that is free will. We were given free will so that we can make the right decisions on how best to use God's gifts of creation, the power of good, to work toward a more perfect world. Overcoming COVID has been an example of the partnership at work. God's gifts of mind and imagination were used by our scientists to develop vaccines. God's goodness achieves its true power when our doctors and nurses make heroic efforts in tending to the ill, and when our parents and teachers make heroic efforts in caring for and in educating our youth. The pandemic is not yet over, but we are within reach of bringing this to an end. How are we using God's gifts to exercise our free will, to make the right decisions, to promote health and safety, and to pursue the right actions in caring for those in need? We will ultimately come out of this as stronger individuals and as stronger humankind, all as a result of our partnership with God. It is our partnership with God that has also helped us endure all the terrible loss and pain of COVID, to mourn for the deceased, to console the bereaved, to pray for and care for the sick. And returning to Genesis, God is light, the light that has opened our eyes to make us see that we are part of a greater community, the spark of light within us that motivates us to do good. If our partnership with God is what will ultimately overcome something as widespread and complex and painful as COVID, then our partnership with God is also what makes humankind capable of overcoming other diseases, overcoming injustice, overcoming violence. And as we do our share in partnering with God and working toward a more perfect world, we are pursuing our journey as we should, our sacred journey. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you.
282, and please rise. We'll turn page now, please. You may be seated. Please turn to page 293. And now our thoughts turn to those who've departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and of death. Back to 291. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light long, long after that star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the stars that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. On page 295, please. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those with whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Within our community, if you are here tonight remembering a loved one, would you please rise? Let's start in the back. Esther? Okay.
My cousin Pam. My husband Alex. My friend Michael Green.
And if you're at home via Zoom and you'd like to type into the chat the name of a loved one, please do so.
Can you read him? I can't see it from here.
Yeah. Nothing's come through yet. Oh, here we go. Lucia McGowan. Okay. No, these are from the.
Okay.
Okay, continue.
All right. If we missed anyone else, please just add them. I'm sorry. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. Please rise. That is custom on page 294. Yiskedal v'yiskadash shemei rabba, b'alma divrach hirusei v'amlich machusei, b'chayechon uv'yamechon uv'chayi l'chol beis Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv mru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mavarach le'alam olemaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei. V'yit adar v'yitalev v'yitalal. Shmei dekudasha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shavasa. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Damran v'yomah v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
You may be
At the
seated.
conclusion of the mourner's Kaddish, we perform a little choreography. We take one step backwards to remember those that we are saying Kaddish for. We bow to the right, we bow to the left, and we bow forward to recognize that the Spirit of the Lord is all around us. And finally, we take one step forward as we know that we must go forward and move on.
Now, the other bookend to our evening. We will invite up, please, Jody Kraft and Sam Miller, who are the children of Denise Green and Larry Green. And you were just married in July? June. Mazel tov. Welcome. Welcome. Pick up the glass and you can undo it, open it up. Yeah.
On page 5, please rise.
Oh, yeah, everybody.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hakofen. Baruch
ato Adonai, Eloheinu They won't get drunk on this, don't worry. You wonder what year it is? Very nice. And then if you put that down, you can pick up for the motzi. And you can pick up the tray maybe. I'll hold that one, hold that.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Put it back down, you both have the pieces. Take it. You can all have it afterwards.
thank you, congratulations.
Thank you. Okay. All right, let me get back to this thing for a second. Okay. Okay.
Rabbi Berkman,
And Rabbi Schaefer.
Rabbi Schaefer.
And we're going to ask, do we have them come up, Rabbi?
Okay.
Have them come up, though. Everyone else.
And any
What-
Brotherhood members who are here this evening,
All the
please
male,
join us.
all the male members, please come up. Sorry to be sexist in this one time.
So, Yasher Koach to Spence, to Alan, to all the members of the Brotherhood who have come up and offered readings, and for the wonderful insights that we heard from Michael Weintraub, from the beautiful Devar Torah from Larry Green. Thank you, Spence and Alan, for organizing this service in which we could hear from a diversity of voices, from longtime members, from newer members, where we could experience the beautiful music of musicians, old and not so old. No, just kidding, guys. Who've been here a while and maybe less of a while. But thank you. This has been a beautiful evening. So at the beginning of many of our services, we sing an ancient line from Psalm 133, but tonight we're singing it at the end, and that is Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad, which means, behold how good and pleasant it is to dwell together as brothers. Now, of course, we generally translate that as siblings to be inclusive, but ultimately what it means is that we are all connected. It really connotes a depth of relationship, of mutual care and concern. And it's really the strength of your bonds to one another and your sense of connection with the brothers who came before you and who will come after you that gives you the deep roots in the rich soil of Jewish tradition and values so that you can branch out as you always have. Your branches of care and concern reaching out to the broader TOS community and beyond, to the wider Jewish community. You, as a communal institution, as a sub-community of our broader temple community, you are first and foremost a brotherhood of service. It's so clear that each of you sees yourself as being part of the brotherhood, not just because it's fun to connect and do fun and interesting things together, but you really see yourselves as being in service to something greater than yourselves, and you always emulate that and inspire me and all of us. We at TOS benefit so deeply so greatly from your deeply rooted service to all of us, whether you're supporting our religious school or so many other initiatives. Your service ultimately to Klal Yisrael, to the Jewish people, the people Israel. So thank you for reminding us always through your words and your actions the importance of living the value that's expressed in the Talmud, Kol Yisrael arevim ze lazeh. All of the people Israel is responsible for one another. May you, members of the Brotherhood, those here tonight and those not present tonight, know many more years of life and health in service to your community, to your many communities, partnering with the divine, with the source of all life, to create, and as Larry taught us, to perfect our world. Hine matov umanaim, shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is to dwell together in deep connection, care, and concern. Shabbat Shalom.
So, all of you members, you're going to be coming up here right after our president speaks. So you can go down or you can stay up here. President Mark Gale, please. Do we have any announcements? Oh. I missed this. No, evidently. Here's the announcements. Underneath that, I missed something.
First, I'd like to say the same thing the rabbi said. She said it way better. Yasher Koach to Spence and Allen. For one of the oldest organizations associated with TOS, it was special for me to see tonight the continuation of a tradition. So it was very nice, and I also would like to thank you for your contributions and efforts that help us as a temple move forward. So I have announcements. Tomorrow morning, we have a Shabbat Torah study led by our rabbinic intern, Naomi Gertland. Next Tuesday, April 5th, begins the first of a series of events that are related to our celebration of the 180th anniversary of our temple. And on April 5th at 7 p.m., we have storytelling night. We're going to have Mike Middleman, Ava, and Jean Deutsch. This event will be held on Zoom, and they will be telling their stories to us, and it should be very interesting. Our Social Action Committee, who's quite active, have several events coming up. I'm going to list two of them here. Tuesday, April 12th, Help the ARS Students Support Ukraine. They will be assembling supply and gift bags, which are part of an organization called Action for Post-Soviet Jewry. And I guess they'll be delivered, and it's going to help some of the people that are essentially refugees. And then also Sunday, April 24th at 12 p.m. is the second of our big events for the 180th. And this is a tree planting that we're involved with an organization called Speak for the Trees in East Boston. And join us with Speak for the Trees. And I guess they'll be planting, and it'll be a nice thing. If you've been around this long, it's nice to create something and give it life to continue even further to represent the furtherance of our congregation. On Thursday, April 7th, we have a Torah for the Heart and Mind with Rabbi Berkman. That's at 9 a.m. And on the 8th, Friday the 8th of April, we have a Shabbat B'Yachad that honors Amelia Remy. For those of you who don't know, Amelia is our TCEE Associate Director. She is leaving her position at TOS to pursue a career in nursing. She's been just terrific running the school for the kids for the last several years, and we'll miss her, but she'll stay a friend of ours, and we wish her well in her future. And so this is a send-off. There'll be a Tat Shabbat. There'll be a dinner at Penn Spiro Hall, and then there will be the Shabbat service. And one last thing, just a reminder, this went out in the email today. If you do want to sign up to match people for a Passover Seder, Daria listed today as the last day. I'm sure you could probably get it in this weekend, and that would be okay. So, Spence and Allen, thanks for having me up, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Before we do our concluding prayer of Adon Olam, I would like to say a very special thank you to what I consider honorary brothers in our brotherhood. We ask them many times for many things, and they are there without batting an eyelash. That's, of course, Rabbi Schaefer. I'm going to miss you. I'm really going to miss you. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to come and see you again. David and Andy, you've been absolutely wonderful these many years helping us out with these services, helping us out at our breakfasts for entertainment purposes. Again, we say thank you. Josh Cohen. About 2 years ago, my daughter and I took a trip to Houston, and we visited NASA. And part of the tour was the mission control room for the Apollo 11. We don't have mission control here, but if you want to see a good facsimile of that, you ought to come over here and see what Josh has set up for the live service, for the Zoom service, and I guess we're also being broadcast on Brookline's local cable channel. Josh has his own little mission control back here. So, Josh, thank you very much. Andy and David and Rabbi, thank you very much. Let's turn to page 321 for Adon Olam, which we're going to sing to a wonderful melody. It's a klezmer melody in Yiddish. It's called Alla Breder, which translates to All the Brothers.
And all the men come on back up as well.
321. Asher molach v'terem kol yitzer nivra le'inaso b'chafsa kol azayin melech shemoni kol v'yacharei kilot hakol u'v'adom yochor v'hoya v'hu malveh v'hu yiyah mitzvoro ay 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 Who doesn't know the words? You know the words. Sheni leman shelo bi'achti bra b'lo reishis b'lisach b'it b'lo torah v'ham mizrah v'hu eli v'chai go'ali v'tzor chavit v'yesar v'hu nisi umanos li v'los v'ibra ay 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 Shan velo ira, v'imruti v'gilati Adonai li velo ira, v'yetzi shan velo ira, v'imruti v'gilati Adonai li velo ira. Ay 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 Shevet achim gam yachad, hine ma tov manayim. Shevet achim gam yachad, hine ma tov. Shevet achim gam yachad, hine ma tov. Shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad.
ata b'voecha, uvaruch ata b'tzesecha.
May God be with you wherever you go. Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos all. Please come downstairs for a light oneg